Gilmore Girls season three. I've got some thoughts. I've got a lot of thoughts. Season three of Gilmore Girls was good. Very good, actually. Not as good as the first two seasons, but not like by a significant margin or anything like that. Still really, really good. So still has that going for it. Let me just jump around to the things I think are the coolest things and most interesting things about the show, poetically, philosophically, and artistically, compositionally. Let's just explore. And let's start with my favorite character, Paris. Fucking Geller is the coolest. I love Paris. I love her to death. Paris Geller for life. Paris Geller cult, rise up. And I love her. She is extraordinary, an incredible character who only gets better and better and better. And I've loved her since the first episode that she was in. They have their on again, off again rivalry. Paris and Rory do in season three. That pairs quite nicely with their like parallel best friends forever vibe that they so effortlessly occupy and express during one of their rivalries, since Paris has a boyfriend named Jamie, who I have an immediate dislike for, mostly because, I mean, you don't really get to meet him too much. I just don't like him. No one's good enough for Paris. But that is at the center of a sort of hopping off point of for their rivalry to really just Oh my God. Paris and Rory had a straight up sword fight. I'm done peppering this analysis with like fun words and like things that make me look kind of smarter than I am. They had a fucking sword fight, and I lost my mind because it was so cool. I'm a simple viewer. It was so cool. I can't believe they did that. That scene, dude, fucking, mwah, chef's kiss, bro. Episode 11, I solemnly swear. And the scene itself is framed in meta narratives. Madeline and Louise and Rory, before the sword fight, literally ask out loud, like, why the fuck are they fencing at school instead of playing badminton? Like, there must be something that's equally as perversely upper class that's a bit more safe or a bit less psychotic than sword fighting. Not that I don't believe that I'm sure there are private schools out there that definitely have fencing, but I like that they are calling attention to the contrived nature of the meta narrative of this specific sequence. So it's leading directly to a sword fight between Paris and Rory. It was so cool to see. Also, Paris fucking whooped her ass, bro. She was so extraordinary. She had me on the verge of tears as often as she had me doing spit takes because of how audaciously funny she was. I'm not joking. I just finished the finale of season three, and I was like, I was drinking my tea and fucking she just had this moment. Like, oh, first of all, she made me choke up a bit during that episode because of the idea that her parents are these like invisible titans or monsters, really. We don't ever see them. She's clearly raised by her nanny, and her nanny's family, her nanny's kids or whatever, like those are very important people to Paris. And of course, that's who attends her graduation, and that's who she smiles to. And there's stuff that makes me choke up, like like the little one, he did really good at bowling last Monday or something, and I'm like, oh my God, I love this kind of characterization. I love this interiority. Like, I like the less is more kind of concept that Amy Sherman Palladino and her team just run with when it comes to Paris. They expertly craft this character, and Liza Weil, she is an extraordinary actor and truly elevates this character to like some boundless kind of like limitless places that I'm so happy that Gilmore Girls gets to kind of traverse, because otherwise, without Paris, I despair to even imagine this show. Um, but She had me choke up at the beginning of the graduation with her nanny and her nanny's family, which is really her extended family, in a very sad and tragic, but heartfelt and incredibly affectionate sort of way. And then she made me do a complete spit take, like I was drinking my tea and fucking spit it out of my mouth, bro. Like a complete spit take. When she's standing in line to get her diploma, and she's like, I don't recognize any of these people. And she just taps on the person in front of her. And it's just like, hey, you, what's your name? What's your story? It's just, I can't even do a good impression. So that entire build up was for a joke that probably didn't read correctly to you, viewer, unless you know the show really well. And I hope you do, because there's a lot of stuff to explore here. Let's not leave Paris just yet. The most interesting thing that Paris did was in episode 16 at the bicentennial, where they're supposed to read speeches, and they tied. Rory and Paris tied for like the best speech or whatever the fuck. I don't care, but they tied, and they were supposed to read it together. Paris and Jamie had just had sex. Paris lost her virginity to Jamie, and also Paris didn't get into Harvard. But I didn't know about the Harvard thing, right? I thought that because when Paris shows up to the speech, you don't know about the Harvard rejection just yet, but you do know about the Jamie thing. And I was fearing the worst for Paris because I was like seeing the signs that I thought were pretty telegraphed. I've been traumatized by my time in places like Tree Hill and Newport Beach. I thought that this was going to be awful for Paris. I thought I thought they were gonna do like the unthinkable with Paris, honestly. I'm like, there's a possibility that they're going to get so postmodern that they lose the plot. I thought for a good little while actually that Paris is going to get like impregnated and have to like give up all of her dreams and goals. Meanwhile, Rory ascends to uh kind of the space of the disgraced queen, which would have been Paris, right? Like the archetypes, the status quo would have been rearranged so intensely. But luckily, those kinds of things only happen in Tree Hill, and my girl Paris was okay, but I did not know that. So when she shows up to the speech and like her hair's all frazzled, like she looks like she's just been fucked up. I I took my phone and I threw it across the room. And um, luckily, it was a pretty fucking durable machine, and it didn't break. But I immediately threw my phone across the room, and my eyes started swelling up with tears. And I kept going, what the fuck? What the fuck did you do, Jamie? I was about to go beat that fictional character his ass. I was gonna go pound him into dirt. I'm unbelievably attached to the Paris character. Uh, Great character. Yeah, unbelievably attached to her. So when I saw her in pain, I thought, what the fuck? What the fuck? Don't do this to me, Gilmore Girls. Don't hurt me like this. I was immediately distrustful of Jamie because I was like, "Ugh, is this gonna be Paris's punishment?" And it was in a way, but Amy Sherman Palladino and her team are brilliant postmodernists. They're not just effective, right? The show could be more effective, but we'll get into criticisms later. Right now, I want to just deem out high praise to the show for this moment. When Paris arrives late to the bicentennial, I thought it was worse than being rejected from Harvard, than not getting into Harvard, but that's what it was. Paris gets up there and commits archetypal suicide. She gets up there and says, I'm being punished because I had sex. She didn't have sex. Rory didn't have sex. I'm sure she'll get into college because she didn't have sex. I didn't get in, but I've had sex. If you had asked me which one of those things would have happened, it definitely wouldn't have been the sex thing or the not going to Harvard thing. This is once again a moment that we definitely experienced with Tristan Dugray in the previous season, where he was leaving and he was definitely speaking and clashing with the meta narrative. He was speaking outside of his narrative designation and was acting like a brat because his arc was being cut short before it ever truly began. Now, Paris was able to complete an arc, but it's not necessarily the arc that was programmed into her. Like let's speak kind of practically for a second, right? Tristan was fascinating because of the archetypal expectations, and Paris was very exciting because of the more practical expectations, and I would call them more generic. She was like a girl who was just pounded on to be like, I have to get into Harvard. My parents are tyrants. I have to go to Harvard because every Geller has gone to Harvard. I got to do all these fucking things. I have to make these invisible monsters happy. And she was definitely lost in in a huge like overwhelming fog of self-hate and self-doubt and self-deprecation, even though she would mask it, right? She would mask it as the thing about Paris Geller is that she is probably the most hypersensitive character here, and she's definitely very aware of her vulnerabilities, so she compensates for them, and I would say it's effective. She compensates for those qualities in a way that could seem selfish to others, right? So I don't consider Paris Geller to be like a truly selfish character. I also think there's a sexist notion when watching like young driven girls like Paris Geller, there's a sexist notion to see the the quality of being driven to succeed as an unlikable or selfish one, um, by by more misogynistic viewers, and I don't share that opinion at all. If you have even half a brain cell, you can definitely see that within Paris, yes, there is this drive to be important because it's been beaten, brainwashed into her head that she has to be important. She has to be unique. Um, she got me to cry though in that same episode. I love that she's up there and she's like, "What the fuck? I was supposed to get into Harvard. Why am I being punished so that Rory could have character development?" That's what I'm ultimately trying to say. I'm trying to say that this archetype, as opposed to like being in a kind of a generic world of like I'm better than you and blah 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 blah. It was finally the archetype of like the Queen of the Damned, the postmodern Queen of the Damned, as I like to ironically call her, going up there and being like, no no no, I didn't get into Harvard because a guy liked me, and I tried to have some like life experience or something, and I knew it was fucking gonna fuck me up the whole entire time I did this. No, no, no. The real reason I didn't get into Harvard is so that Rory can stay this sanitized porcelain baby doll. I had sex, so I don't get to go to Harvard. Thank you, the way teen drama works. Thank you, the inherent punishment of teen drama in the early 2000s. Thank you so much for being so fucking deliriously unfair. But she did make me cry almost directly afterwards, where she's like talking about Jamie, or if you're like me, you're thinking like this is a character who has committed archetypal suicide. She's no longer the smartest, most driven, most determined, or at least most successful person in the room anymore. That has been taken by the primary protagonist of the show, the primary character of Gilmore Girls. Clearly, obviously. And she doesn't know if people are gonna like her anymore, if she's gonna be unique anymore, if she's gonna remain interesting. Will anyone love her when she's no longer the archetype that you thought you knew so clearly, because that has been removed from her for the sake of character development, but is kind of, yeah, it's kind of sanitizing Rory, keeping her in this really naive and baby-like stasis. We'll go back to Paris. I don't want to bore you guys too much. I have a lot of thoughts on Paris. Adam Brody is in this season. I love Adam Brody. He is great as Dave. And Dave and Lane look extremely good together, and I think he's extremely good for Lane. I think Lane's even better for Dave. Um, Adam Brody, great, great, great kind of like a breakout performance. I know that this is his only season because he goes off to Newport Beach to really become one of the most legendary figures in teen drama. Seth Cohen, whether you like the character or you hate the character, you have to admit in the year of 2023, we are living in Seth Cohen's universe. I personally love Seth Cohen, and I think that Adam Brody on the OC is that is like symbolic. That is and that's entirely emblematic of the early 2000s teen drama. That's entirely emblematic of teen drama as a whole. That's like one of the most important characters in teen drama. That's up there with Joey Potter from Dawson's Creek, right? It's an incredibly important character that has actually shaped culture. Watch my OC videos if you want to know more about what I think of Adam Brody's performance as Seth Cohen in the OC. Watch my videos about the OC if you want to know more about that. Right now we're talking about Dave, but yeah, I do know that this is his only season, and he did quite well. He did great. And I know in future seasons he is referenced as like, oh, he has to go to school in California, which is like a playful reference to how he's on the OC now. It's curiously similar, but a bit more playful. About how when Chad Michael Murray left the show in season two, he went to like military school in North Carolina where they shot Dawson's Creek, which is what show he left to. Uh, it's the show he left Gilmore Girls for. But this season started fucking with me, right? Ultimately, the screwball comedy framework is beginning to hold certain moments and characters back. Um, Especially Lane Kim. Lane's home life is actually shockingly abusive, and the show kind of sanitizes it, mining her mother's fanatical behavior for comedy. Believe it or not, after 45 episodes, child abuse somehow loses its charms. I know, crazy to imagine. I do like seeing Dave and Lane. When Dave kissed Lane for the first time, I went, hell yeah, dude. Hell, hell yeah. I got really excited. That was really cool. But fuck, dude, it's so many episodes and like the amount of fanaticism, like abusive fanaticism of Lane's mother is like kind of just okay, now it's not funny. Now I kind of just want to punch her in the face. Like it's no longer goofy, okay? You let her go out with the nice looking Jewish boy right now. You do it. He plays guitar. He knows cool bands. Lane is clearly crazy about him. Fuck you. Fuck. It got hard to find the comedy in it anymore. That's my largest criticism, right? The show goes for eccentricity over authenticity. It's a worrisome quality that the show has, but it's because of the screwball comedy framework of the show, which is its strongest feature, but also I think it's Achilles' heel. And 3 seasons might be the limit for how long it could work without true design flaws. And this shit ran for like 7 regular seasons and then a mini series. There's no way it can keep that up. Not when it's not uh, it's unwilling to destroy. It's hyper literally unwilling to destroy, demonstrably so. Consider the final scene of the entire season. The season 3 ends with Lorelai and Rory in like the Chilton Main Hall. Rory just graduated, and Lorelai has this idea of like we're gonna vandalize it. It's goofy and it's fun. I don't mean to frame it as some sort of menacing moment. It's a good moment of rebellion, and she's trying to like etch their initials into some place somewhere. But every place that she goes to, Rory's like that was donated by Robert Frost, or there's some other historical significance to that piece. We can't do it anywhere. We can't even do it on the floor. It's been there for fucking dinosaurs walked on this floor or something stupid. And they end up giving up on that idea, and they walk away, but not without saying, "Take a look around, Rory. It's not scary anymore, is it?" This is brilliant, but it also brilliantly exposes what I think will be the show's ultimate design flaw. This is Lorelai and Rory, Gilmore Girls as a whole, desperately trying to leave their mark on the narrative, on the meta narrative, on teen drama, on television, whatever, on cinema. They're trying to leave their mark somewhere, but everywhere they look, there's this unimpeachable history attached to it that they respect too much almost for empty reasons. For like they won't vandalize the screwball comedy framework that they're working within. They refuse. It would for the sake of the respect of a history, I guess. I don't know. I don't it okay, maybe they should have left their initials somewhere. But the important part is that it's not scary anymore and that they can freely roam these sacred halls, the sacred frameworks of the screwball comedy, the sacred frameworks of great television. They've arrived. They're here. They should have vandalized it. But it's not that kind of show. It's still brilliantly done, but that is going to be a design flaw. Trust me. The season is bookended by dreams of Luke and Lorelai. The season opens with a dream of Luke and Lorelai, and you're like, oh man, Lorelai is pregnant. This is amazing. Why didn't I get to see this happen? And you're like, oh, because it didn't happen. It's just a dream. And that's a dream Lorelai's having. And then it ends with Luke having a dream where Lorelai goes into his diner and is like, hey, don't marry your new girlfriend. And that's not real either. That's just a dream too. I know this show did not invent the slow burn, but this thing with Luke and Lorelai, they're they might as well have invented it, okay? Because this is taking so long. It's well done. It's well done. When they kiss, I don't know what I'm going to do with myself. Which they better do. Okay, like I better not be just hoping for something that doesn't happen. Jess gets beat up by a swan this season. Which yes, is funny, and I understand why he's embarrassed, but like so in my city, there's this like particular lake here, and everyone says, and it sounds weird, it sounds preposterous, but everyone says that the swans at the lake were donated to us by the Queen of England. It sounds weird, but everyone agrees on this weird fever dream that we all believe to be history. It probably is true. It is inconsequential to the story I'm telling. They are assholes, and they have so much protection. You can't kick a fucking swan. You can't mallet it over the like like Jess was prepared to do. But these the swans will fucking attack you. Jess is right to be intimidated and scared and angry. Swans are assholes. Um, oh, you probably wanted me to like analyze Jess and not rail against swans. But every channel has to stand for something, okay? If you're silent on swans and you're fucking complicit. Jess is awesome this season. Milo continues to be incredible. He's great. He's great and he's truly flawed and not simply eccentric, and he gets an exile from Stars Hollow and goes and lives with his dad in LA. That's at least where we're at right now at the end of season three. I thought he was fantastic. The fight that he and Dean had, I'm glad that it actually happened. I didn't think the show would go there, but then I'm like, you idiot. It gave you a sword fight between Paris and Rory. You didn't think you'd get a fist fight at a kegger with Dean and Jess. That's a given. That's granted if you got the fucking sword fight. The sword fight's better than the Dean fight. The girls do it way better, dude. But of course, the juxtaposition between Dean and Jess is pretty interesting. I have to side with Jess ultimately. With Dean's gonna make what does he say? Dean's gonna make some woman a very good doormat one day. And yeah, yeah, Dean's kind of fucking so pathetically nice that it's like inconsiderate to my gag reflex. The kid is just he's unreal. He's unreal. He's either entirely like fantasy or he has no spine. And I don't, or I just relate to Jess a lot more. Like as a guy, I guess. Uh, Jess's temperament is more similar to my own. Well, actually, Dave's is the most similar to my temperament. What am I fucking saying? I'm not some cool fucking Italian kid from New York. I'm more like the weird Jewish kid down the street who listens to garage bands and old punk music. Anyway, what they do that's I think really interesting with Jess is that we finally get some might not be an investigation of class or social stratification, but it is an investigation of a certain kind of authentically rebellious attitude because Jess flunked out of school. Jess is clearly smart enough to graduate, but he just didn't want to. He wanted to go for a job. He is this JD Salinger hero in perpetuity, which I think is something that's worth celebrating in a teen drama for sure. And that's actual rebellion. And Stars Hollow is actually a psychotic and maddening place. And I'm glad that Jess also agreed with me that it living in Stars Hollow, it looks nice, it looks fun, but it would be hell to anyone who was in any way a free thinker. Um, Jess is an extraordinary kid, and I do love Rory and Jess together. My major gripe with this show is at the end of my season two analysis, I did say that Lorelai was aggravating me. Well, it looks like it's genetic because it's been passed on to her daughter come season three. Rory and Lorelai annoy me a lot. They aggravate me so much, and they're the main characters of the show, and I'm fucked now because I have so much. I'm not even halfway done, and I'm stuck in a show where I don't like the two leads. I don't think that what they do is heroic or cute or anything but selfish, to be honest. You have a relationship like one with Jess, or the things that she does to Dean, or even let's take Lane. Um, Rory will hang out with Lane and then make it about her. Lorelai it's a lot more obvious when she does it. The shit she puts Luke through. Whenever she's hanging out with Sookie, everything with her parents certainly everything is about her. And we have this episode where she has flashbacks to where she was giving birth to Rory, and she acts exactly like she does as a grown up, which makes you, I think it's poetically trying to tell you that like that was such a traumatic experience that it infantilized her in a large way, and she, or it traumatized her so much that she stayed in that stasis, that the safety of the angst of a 16-year-old girl. Which there is poetry in that, but there's not a whole lot of integrity for me, especially when 16-year-old girls will act really selfish. That's why I'm more forgiving to Rory about this, because when you're a kid, everything is like hyper amplified. Everything is overblown. Everything's so melodramatic because it is the end of the world, and that's what it actually feels like. Rory has all the license to be as superficial and selfish as she wants to be when she's 18 years old. That mentality does not transfer over as effortlessly into someone in their mid 30s like Lorelai was or is. She is awful. She's so selfish, but Rory is acting just as selfish, and the show is celebrating that selfishness. Now, the true problem here is that these are screwball comedy heroines. Now, normally we are only around screwball comedy heroines for 80 to 90 minutes tops. I've been around these guys for like 70 hours. And yeah, they're starting to wear me down. I don't like it right now. But if I had to spend time with Claudette Colbert from It Happened One Night, or Jean Arthur from Easy Living, or The Devil and Miss Jones, if I had to spend 70 fucking hours with Carol Lombard from My Man Godfrey, I would end up shooting myself. it sounds entirely insufferable. So this is like by design, right? Like it's part of its design flaw. It has to start destroying. I wish that they symbolically vandalized the screwball comedy framework, because that's almost the point of being postmodern. If you're not going to deconstruct or destroy it, then why are you using the tools? You know? This is why this is why I see a lot of problems in the future for this show. Lorelai and Rory are both so unimaginably selfish. My God, they're so performative and they're so selfish. They're Dawson Leary levels of selfish and narcissistic. They are definitely Seth Cohen levels of selfish and narcissistic, but without the inherent charm and endless likability of Adam Brody, or the kind of expert wit that the OC had. Gilmore Girls is very witty and very funny, but like I said, Gilmore Girls loves its characters so much to the point that it's like so charitable to them, and it thinks that Lorelai is so fucking awesome, whereas the OC thought Seth Cohen was a fucking nerd because he was. It's just that he was delusional and narcissistic, which made him funny. But Gilmore Girls, you're presented with these awkward scenarios, played out with contrived perfection by Lorelai and Rory. It's just that the composition is like, aren't they the coolest fucking people? Don't you wish you were like them? You and your daughter can be just like them, and I would hate you. I would hate you so much. Maybe that's the point. Maybe that's the point. I don't know. Without Paris, I don't know where I'd be. Without Lane and without Dave this season, I don't know where I would have been. Uh, But season three was very good. But this might be my limit. We're definitely doing like the whole thing. Don't worry. I'm not giving up. I'm just saying that I might turn into your worst boyfriend ever if you're a big fan of Gilmore Girls, because I don't. Amy Sherman Palladino is like a million times smarter than me. So I see it going in a certain direction that I find appalling, but she's definitely smart enough. And this show, the way it ended, felt like a big chance to brainstorm and redesign. Since we're going to college now, we must maybe that even leaving Chilton was symbolically leaving the frameworks of screwball comedy, and we're on to something else. Fingers crossed. Um, Maybe that's it. But from my vantage point, from my point of view, it looks like it's heading into an unwinnable situation. Uh, just and the design flaws of Gilmore Girls are becoming a lot more pronounced as we go on. Which isn't to say it's not doing fascinating things, but mostly it's doing fascinating things with their secondary characters, with people like Paris Geller and Tristan DeGray and Lane Kim. With their secondary characters, this show can be extraordinary. With its two leads, who this show is obsessed with trying to make you not only love, but like they're trying to make you project yourself onto. Like I unabashedly so. I hate them. They're so aggravating to me. Like Rory gets mostly a pass because she is a fucking kid, man. Like you can be an asshole if you're a kid. You have to mature eventually. Okay. She's actually just getting worse as the show goes on. But Lorelai, I no, no. And her stupid ethics, man. Like she overhears I don't take kindly to anyone talking shit about Paris Geller, so be warned for this outburst. But she overhears Paris telling Rory that she slept with Jamie, that she had sex for the first time. And she also hears that her own daughter, Rory, is still this perfect, sanitized virgin. And she says to herself, like, I have the good kid. Fuck you. You were Paris. Like, you weren't Paris. You were pregnant. It doesn't make you bad. It doesn't make you bad. Like, this is like such a puritanical notion that I'm surprised at this show that does have like a feminist core to it and a kind of radical feminist core to it that I admire greatly would admonish Paris for simply fucking having sex once through Lorelai, through your main character. He's supposed to be like kind of rebellious and kind of like a championing like misfit girls, right? Because she was herself one. And then she gets a moment of clarity after hearing that conversation, and all she can say is that Rory is a good kid and Paris is a bad kid, at least implicitly. Like that's awful. That's stupid. That's a stupid moral framework for this show to, I think, wildly adjust to. And I don't know who that's for. It's definitely not for girls who are struggling. This is shows are just written for moms who want their kids to be like perfect, uncanny baby looking like things. Like, it's not right. It's not right to say that about Paris. She had sex once. And then, yeah, the show did go out of its way to punish her. She was interested in a boy. And so, of course, I guess Paris can't be interested in more than one thing. Like, I know she's an obsessive person with obsessive like personality qualities. Uh, but I also believe that Paris is intelligent and intense enough to be able to juggle both Jamie and um like her school assignments. She can do her school assignments in her sleep. That's made clear, and she fell behind on it because of Jamie. This is so dumb. Um, like it is wildly punishing Paris, and Paris is completely right in calling out the show for it. Like I don't get to go to Harvard because I had sex, and then Rory just given the world on a fucking rainbow, right? She decides she doesn't want to go to Harvard and goes to Yale instead. She decides that. If we could all be so fucking lucky. Like whose dream fantasy is this? That's probably why I connect with Jess so much. You know, I myself am a high school dropout, ended up getting my GED at some point and went to college for a few years, but when I was the age these people are in the show, I had already dropped out of high school, you know? I don't know what like whose boring wet dream it is to be like, I have a kid who can go to any Ivy League school ever. I'd want a kid who had integrity and was authentic. I'd want a kid who was driven to be unique and was sad when she or he they felt like they weren't. I want, you know, like Jess or Paris. Like that's I want a kid who like acts like who, who acts like a teenager should, and part of what being a teenager is like maturity is a deconstruction of youth. Like that's what adolescence is. And you have to make mistakes. You have to experience things. You have to do things that you know are wrong because you have to know what wrongness feels like. You have to know what victory feels like in the palm of nihilism, right? I'm getting a bit too extreme there. My ultimate criticism here is that I think that Jess is easily the most authentic character on the show, and that Paris is the most sensitive character on the show. And these two characters, I feel, are punished um, by the show through a moral lens that I find not only disagreeable but insulting. So I it's a very good season of television, right? Because nothing I just said betrays its framework, betrays its design, and it allows for these characters to do some really interesting things. The only thing that's not interesting is the way that our heroes, our two main leads, react to these problems. They react in puritanical and aggravating and idiotic ways that are supposed to be perceived as not only witty but dignified. And I think ultimately Lorelai and Rory are hardly ever either of those things. So I think we're gonna end it here. I think I've fucking babbled on long enough, guys. Thank you for watching. I've been your cult boyfriend. I'll be back at some point in life, I guess. I know this video took a little while to come out after season two, which is I think probably going to be the best video I ever make about Gilmore Girls. Let's be real. Watch season two analysis. I think that's peak your cult boyfriend criticism when it comes to Gilmore Girls. But I'll be back eventually to talk about season four. I promise. I'm not giving up, and I really enjoyed this season. Um, it just gets to a point of like, yeah, it punished Paris and it allowed Paris to call the show out for punishing her, or at least the idea of narratives or meta narratives punishing an archetype. Um, but that's also like having your cake and eating it too. And I've never been too comfortable with doing that just to do it because it's unfair to the archetype and to the audience. And the archetype was Paris, my favorite character, and me being the audience. Insult my um don't insult my emotions when I'm so attached to her. Characters deserve justice, archetypes deserve justice. You gave justice to Tristan Dugray. Every character should receive that kind of treatment. Thank you.